what I want to invite people is to say a little, to invite a little bit of, call it self-love, a bit of holding the times it doesn't go well lightly, being okay with the messiness of experimenting and not having it work. Because part of the greatest learning is accepting that there'll be mistakes.
Okay, Andy, so this is the closing chapter, and you talk about holding yourself lightly. Yeah. Can you just briefly cover what that is, what that's about?
So in the book, you've several moments said, Andy, that isn't easy, that isn't easy, that isn't easy. And
I think almost every chapter.
And so what I want to invite people is to say a little, to invite a little bit of, call it self-love, a bit of holding the times it doesn't go well lightly, being okay with the messiness of experimenting and not having it work. Because part of the greatest learning is accepting that there'll be mistakes. And I know it isn't easy, and I know it isn't easy because this is a book. It's not, people aren't interacting with me directly. And I just really would love it if people had that chance to almost like say, it is messy, and that's okay. So I really do invite people to go through this with some grace and be gentle on themselves. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And I know that this is a very deep topic, but I want to, being this the closing chapter, go a little bit about your writing book process, because you talk about taking yourself lightly, but I don't think you took this book very lightly at all. And I'd like you to just talk a little bit about your process of writing this book and going through it, and what you went through and what you struggled with, and anything that comes to your mind. I'm catching a little bit off guard here, but I think this is an interesting point.
So this book started, say, 6 years ago. My mentor died. And as a testament to him, I wanted to write all the lessons that I took away from our 10 years, or however many years that was in the end. And what ended up happening, as I wrote, I couldn't write the book because it was his insight, not mine. So as I wrote, I couldn't finish the chapters. It's like, I'd like to finish it, but it's like I'm writing about him. I'm not writing about what I understand on a deep level. So I tried and I failed. And so then I wrote the first of the books, The Last Letter, and then I wrote the second, The Wounded Healer. And then the people who read those books said, Andy, we love the books. Can you give us more instructions? And I really resisted it, because I said, you know what? Everyone's journey is different. So to give instructions almost takes away your process. You've got to figure it out. If I make you feel more confident because you have a model, I may disrupt your process. It's your journey. And yet I said, Andy, what about trying? Like, give it a shot. And COVID came. And then I just started to write each chapter, going back to the content that I had 6 years prior. And I saw that it was no longer my mentor's insight, it was then my insight. And I saw that he would have written the book differently than I had, but the insight was pointing in the same direction. And so that just guided me, and that was, it was a 6-month process. And then I parked that book because I continue wanting to have more and more responsibility, which is why we're doing these videos, because I realized it is not easy to get through some of this. So I've got to give a little bit more supporting material. So I took a little bit more time to do this with you. Thank you.
Yeah, and one of the things is this has been fun for me too. As you know, I've written very different types of books than you. Mine more science and philosophy-based, really technical, detailed stuff. And what you've allowed me to do is see even the work I have, because we have a lot of overlap, from a new lens. And I really appreciate your lens, because I think it allows for a lot of broader insights for people. One of the things that we've had a conversation about is responsibility towards our readers, and how we see that differently. And what I've experienced with you is that you have this large gravity of responsibility for your readers, but your approach is if it works. And you have this deep caring and this deep need to connect, this deep need to, let's say, I don't want to say need to connect, it's a need to enable connection.
Yeah.
Like to spread the ability to connect. And I've always been fascinated that was the tact you took, that was the angle you took. Why do you take that angle? Why is that angle so important to you, and so you have so much passion for it that you've decided to take the time, 6 years, to write a book?
Yeah. I want to cry when I see two people not getting along because they first can't feel their own incapacity or their own sadness or their own, struggle, and then they bring it into the relationship, and then both of them suffer. And I see it because of my own history on a very visceral level. It's where one would maybe look at these two individuals and say, what's really going on here? I feel it in my body, like very deeply. So in some way, this feels like my contribution to support individuals who maybe don't know how to go about taking some personal responsibility in their lives, and being able to hold someone's hand through this mechanism is like, that's what gives my life meaning. And so I really do feel the person who went from chapter 1 to 30 with me here, I really feel like I went on a journey with that person. And there's a real deep connection. And I leave, all my books kind of in that state, like, I love you. And those words aren't shallow or hollow words. It feels like, you spent that time with me. Like, there's a real deep love and gratitude for that. Yeah.
Thanks, Andy, for your gift. And thanks for being you.
Thank you.